I know. I know. Just because I was in Florida preaching at Cross and Crown and worshiping at Corinth Baptist Church in Mississippi, it doesn't give me an excuse. You were chomping at the bit. You were waiting for the next Monday morning challenge, and it wasn't there. Well, fear no more. The challenge you've been waiting for has arrived, and it's a hard one. Can I pose the question this morning? Do you daydream? It's just you and I. You can be honest. Do you, from time to time, maybe before you're going to bed or at some point during your day, find yourself thinking about something that you wish you had, or a reality maybe that you wish you were living in? There are a couple of things that I daydream about. Since this last winter was my first winter in New York for a very long time, I find myself now daydreaming about a lifted, fire-breathing four-wheel drive truck with studded snow tires that'll go anywhere. And see, when I was in Florida, I didn't need a four-wheel drive. I said, man, that just lowers your gas mileage. It's more stuff that can break. But now when I'm out driving around in my two-wheel drive truck, sliding all over the road, I think, man, it'd be nice to have a monster truck with studded snow tires. That's one of my daydreams. Comment on this video if you'd like to hear another of my long-standing daydreams. There's something that I'm holding back from you. I've been daydreaming for about 5 years about owning one of these. Comment if you'd like to know what that is. That monster truck, though, a big four-wheel drive truck for upstate New York, is one of the things that I am daydreaming about. What about you? What do you daydream about? Do you daydream about maybe just having a car that will actually start most of the time? Do you daydream about a house that's not continuously falling down around you? Do you daydream about maybe being able to go visit a friend or a family member that you haven't been able to visit in a long time? Do you daydream about maybe a better boss or a paycheck? We, myself included, have to be very careful what we daydream about. Many of the times, the things that we think on become reality. If you don't believe me, consider what James said. But every man is tempted when he's drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust hath conceived, it brings forth sin, and sin, when it's finished, brings forth death. We think on a thing, we daydream about a thing, and then we usually put those thoughts into action. Can I encourage you possibly not to daydream at all, but rather to shift your daydreams? What I mean is, do you ever daydream about what God can do with you? You see, I think when we were kids, we would hear about David and Goliath, and we would wish, man, I want to go kill a giant with a stone and a sling. We'd hear about Elijah calling down fire from heaven or praying and stopping the rain, and we think, man, I wish that I could call down fire from heaven, or I wish that I could ask God to turn off the faucet for a while. But then as adults, I think that we cease to daydream. We think, well, God used them like that. God used Jim Elliot. God used D.L. Moody. God used Spurgeon. But God will never use me like that. I think we're wrong to think like that. You see, we began looking at the book of Esther again last night, and in that book, we see God use a little orphan girl to save an entire nation. See, I love what Jonathan said to his armor bearer in 1 Samuel 14:6. And Jonathan said to the young man that bare his armor, "Come, let us go over unto the garrison of these uncircumcised. It may be that the Lord will work for us, for there is no restraint to the Lord to save by many or by few." After that verse, they literally climb a jagged, slippery cliff to fight enemy combatants and have victory over 20 enemy combatants after climbing a cliff. Consider Moses. When the Lord called him at the burning bush to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt, Moses said this, and Moses said unto God, "Who am I that I should go unto Pharaoh, and that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt?" Moses didn't say, "You're right, God. I'm so glad you asked me. I'm the perfect man for the job. I'll go tell him right now." No, Moses knew that he was nothing. Everyone you can think of who was ever famous for God was a nothing and a nobody right up until God used them. And then after God used them, if they were wise, they still realized they were a nothing and a nobody. And it's all about God. The scriptures are filled with people who were unknown or even known for being the worst of the pack. Think of David when Samuel went to Jesse's house to anoint a new king. His own father didn't even think he was significant enough to be there. He said, man, just stay out in the field. But that's the one that God chose to be the new king. So if scriptures are filled with historical accounts of nothings and nobodies that were used by God to do amazing things, then you and I are in a great place to be used by God, because you and I are also nothings and nobodies. I want to encourage you this morning. I want to challenge you this morning. Stop thinking of all the things that you don't have. Stop thinking about how you're not the best looking, or how you're not the smartest, or how you're not young anymore, or how you don't know how to use a computer, or how you don't have very much money. Stop thinking about yourself and start thinking about your God. You see, you and I, we serve the same God that Moses did. The God who used the plagues to mock the false gods of Egypt and set his people free. You and I serve the same God as Elijah, who stopped the rain for 3.5 years, and then when the prophet said, I think it's time, he turned the faucet back on. We serve the same God who threw down fire from heaven and consumed the sacrifice on Mount Carmel. We serve the same God who spoke the world into existence out of nothing. We serve the same God of Peter and Paul. We serve the same God of Spurgeon and Moody. We serve the same God of MacArthur and Jonathan Edwards. And God is still the same. Yesterday, today, and forever. God is still on the throne. I believe with as much faith as I can muster that God can, and that God still does, use nothings and nobodies to do things that they would have never dreamed of in their wildest imagination. Because when God uses a nothing, when God uses a little orphan girl, when God uses a man who his daddy didn't even think was good enough to show up when his brothers were being anointed, when God uses someone who persecuted the church and dragged men and women bound to Jerusalem to make them recant, to be the greatest church planter out there, the only one who can get the glory is God. So when you're daydreaming, sure, daydream of that fire-breathing, four-wheel drive, studded, snow-tired truck. But don't forget to daydream of how God can use you to lead 10 people to the Lord this year, to lead maybe 100 people to the Lord this year, to lead 100,000 people to the Lord over the course of your life. Remember, it's not about you. It's not about me. It's about how great our God is. Please, as we come to the end of this video, praise God for who He is. And that's the Monday Morning Challenge.